All right, everyone, we got our hands on an Analogue Pocket. We're going to unbox it and test it out in today's video. Could this be the greatest handheld gaming system ever made? Well, we're going to check it out right now. What's up, everyone? So we finally got our hands on something that I've been trying to buy for a while now, and you know, I will say that I've grown to have a love-hate relationship with Analogue. We can get into that in a minute, but this is the Analogue Pocket. It's becoming very famous for being a pain to get a hold of. So this is essentially a handheld device that plays multiple different types of games, and you can even dock it and play it on your TV, which is really why I wanted this. But I've tried to purchase these a number of times directly from Analogue, and every time they have one of these sales, I get on there and within a minute or two everything's sold out, and I'll get stuck in a queue or something will happen and I can't buy it. And this was no exception. I wasn't able to get this directly from Analogue. Unfortunately, even though it is still sealed, I had to pick this up from Mercari. Now, there's nothing wrong with Mercari. I've bought a couple items off of there, and I've never had any issues purchasing from them, from the sellers rather. But in this case, it's just disappointing that it's a brand new item. They're doing these limited runs, and every time they do, they sell out immediately, and they allow people to buy 2 pieces of each. I wish they would just put it down to 1 so that you can get your hands on it, but we've got one now, and we've got a couple of different things we're wanting to try to do with this thing. But I guess for this part of the video, just to take into consideration, we've got our pocket here, and we'll open it up in a second, and then we've got the dock to hook it up to the TV, a Game Gear adapter, a fast charging power supply, and a screen protector. So once I got my hands on this, I was able to get the rest of the stuff just directly from Analogue, no problem. But the Pocket is the one that seems to be difficult to get a hold of. So what we'll do is we'll start unboxing all this stuff, and we'll just start from the least desirable to the one that we're actually wanting to see, and go from there. So this is the screen protector. You know, do you have to get one of these? No, but I decided that, you know, it's a good idea, just like your cell phone or anything else. If I get a cell phone, I like to use these just to try to make sure that you're not scratching up or tearing up the screen, especially with how hard these damn things are to come by. But let's see what we got here. Okay, so we've got the screen protector, the wipes. See if I can get my hands on this. There we go. Oh, okay, just instructions, and they got a QR code you can scan to get to the instructions, so that's easy enough. All right, so this is the screen protector in all its glory. Up next is the fast charging power supply. If I can get this open. There we go. All right, so we've got our AC adapter, similar style box as the others. There we go. So here's the dock. I mean, it looks pretty nice, just like everything they make. It's definitely got some weight to it, much more than what I would have thought. I don't know if they've got something inside weighted just to try to keep it in one spot or what, but we take a little closer look to it. So this is where the Pocket's going to connect, is here. We're going to be standing upright in that position. And then we've just got some letters here, HDMI, 2.4, Bluetooth. Around the back, we've got 2 USB ports, I would expect this to be a power button or something here. We've got our power cable in and our HDMI in here, or out rather, HDMI out to the TV. And I would assume that these USBs are if you're wanting to hook up wireless controllers. This is where you could plug in that receiver for the controller. But yeah, this definitely has some weight to it. Feels like it's made very well, which now I come to expect pretty much out of anything these guys make. They do a really good job. In here, it looks like we've got a cable, two cables. One of them's probably HDMI, I would assume. Let me see, CB01. So we've got a HDMI here, and then this is gonna be the power cable. Yeah, this is our power cable. And then we've got our little instruction card here that we've seen in the other items. All right, now we've got another interesting device here. This is the Pocket adapter so that you can play Game Gear games in the Pocket. The Pocket is out of the box, at least to my knowledge. It'll run your Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games. So they've made these adapters to play other handheld game consoles. In this case, the Sega Game Gear, and they've also got a TurboGrafx, Neo Geo Pocket, and Atari Lynx. Now those three I ordered. It comes in a package of all three, but they sent an email saying that those weren't going to ship until February of 2024. So we're not going to wait around for them to do that and to make the video. What we'll do is when we get those, we will unbox them and we'll do a video testing out different games on those to see how it works. But for right now, we do have the Game Gear one. So we'll open this up. All right. Here's the cartridge itself. It's got a plastic piece of film on here to protect it. Now this is, we also received whenever we bought the Mega SG, the Analogue Mega SG, which is the Sega Genesis version that they have of their console, we got an adapter similar to this for that console for the Sega Master System. This is made very similar to the one for the Master System. Crystal clear acrylic, looks like they've got here, which looks great. Everything looks very good, feels good in your hand. It's not too heavy, but heavy enough. The plastic itself, it's not real delicate and thin feeling. It looks like it's a very good build quality. They've got the Analogue logo on the side here. It's a nice little touch. Looks good. And then inside, we've got another instruction set here, looks like. Okay, so this is it. We're going to leave this out because whenever we unbox the Pocket here in a second, we are going to test this out with a Game Gear game and see if it fits in here okay. All right, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Here we go. So this is the Pocket. We've got the transparent smoke edition. Let's get this thing opened up. All right, same style box. Goes with everything else. There we go. Wow, so this thing really has some weight to it. Was not expecting that. I mean, everything that they do is made pretty well, but it's definitely heavier than what I had imagined it would be. So, how does everything feel? Well, I mean, we've got our shoulder buttons here. Looks like SD card slot here, I'm assuming for firmware. I don't know, maybe somebody just did some kind of a jailbreak thing where you can put that in. Then we've got on the side here, volume up, down, power, buttons feel good. The shoulder buttons feel good. The D-pad, it feels pretty good. Yeah, all the buttons feel very responsive. So these buttons are similar to the Super Nintendo, where you got the top two that are concave, and then you've got the other two that are sticking out a little bit more. But just think Super Nintendo. That's the way those are set up. And then we've got some buttons down here at the bottom. There's three, It looks like they light up. I'm not sure what they all do. The one in the middle is an analog button. It's probably for, I don't know, hooking up controllers or something. Along the bottom, we've got this port, which I think this is to connect to another of these to do like the, I think it was the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance did for some Pokemon games. I don't think the original Game Boy did that. Maybe it did. I can't remember. But that's what this is, to link to another one of these. And then we've got our power down here at the bottom. This is also where we'll plug it into the dock. And then this looks like a microphone port here. So yeah, it feels really good. It's definitely heavier than what I would have thought. The screen's got a nice size to it. Now let's see how the games fit. So up first we got Dr. Mario for the Game Boy. See if this thing's gonna... Boom, there we go. Goes in. I don't know if I'm crazy about it, so much of it being exposed here. I mean, it does, yeah, it's pretty tight. I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, but since there's not much in here, I don't know, it just makes you wonder if you can see there's not actually too much inside, but it's pretty firm. I don't think it's going anywhere. Yeah, it's snug fit. So that's the Game Boy, fits all right. Now we'll try the Game Boy Color. We've got San Francisco Rush 2049. Fits right down in there, no problem. Same as the last one. It's coming, it looks like about 3/8 from the top here, somewhere around there, down into the console itself. But yeah, looks good, fits good. And I will say too, it's not too tight to put the cartridge in, it's just enough. So it doesn't feel like you're going to break anything inserting it or taking it out. Now we've got Super Mario World for Game Boy Advance. Fits good, no problem. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our Game Gear adapter in here. All right, we got that in. Let's take a look at this, see what it looks like. Now, you can't access your triggers when this is in. That's one thing to note, but hopefully you don't need those. I don't think you need the triggers for any of these games, but you definitely can't access them with this in. So that's what it looks like inside. It is sticking out just a little bit more than the back, but yeah, it's not too big of a deal. To hold it, I mean, your hands are going to be down further anyway, so it's not a big deal. Now we'll try the Sonic Chaos Game Gear game we've got here. Now it looks pretty good. It is sticking up a little bit, I mean, higher than what I would like, but in a docked position it doesn't really matter. Walking around, I think you would want to take the game out before you stored it, because again, it is sticking out a lot. You've got the adapter and then the game itself, but I will say everything's pretty snug. It doesn't feel loose, it doesn't feel like it's going to fall out or go anywhere. Now one thing I will note is, if you try to take this out, the connection of the cartridge to the converter here is tighter than the one in the console, so you'll see what I mean. The whole thing pulls out. Now that's not necessarily a big deal, unless you want it to be, I guess, but that means that you have to hold on to this the adapter in order to pull out the cartridge. I don't know if the other ones will be the same way, the ones that they're making for the TurboGrafx or the Neo Geo Pocket or the Atari Lynx, but it is something to note. So it does feel nice and tight though, and it doesn't feel too hard to pull out. Maybe after time, when you insert the cartridge in and out a few times, it won't be as bad, but like for right now, that connection is tighter than the one that goes in the console. So you need to hold to the adapter here in order to pull out the game. All right, so the one last thing I'll show you guys, and I don't know if it's gonna work. I haven't seen anybody do this. It may work, but we're gonna try it out ourselves and see if it does. We're gonna try this guy right here, the Everdrive GBA, in this and see if it works. So as far as the fitment, it should be fine because it's just a Game Boy Advance cartridge, no big deal. But will this device read the files from this? That's what I'm not so sure about. You would think it would, but I don't know. But we're going to try it. And I've also got, so this cartridge here from Everdrive, you can also put NES games on it. So I've got a couple NES games on here that we're going to try whenever we hook this thing up on the dock and we start playing it to see if it'll actually play them. Again, I don't know if it will or not, but we're going to give it a shot and see what we get. But I'm excited to see if this will work, because this will open up a lot more possibilities for this thing if it does. Krikzz also has Everdrive cartridges for the Game Gear as well. Just a note in case you didn't know that. So, all right, you've seen us check everything out. Now we are going to hook this thing up to the TV. We're going to do a game capture via our Elgato HD60X device, and you guys will see what we see whenever we are playing this on the TV. All right, you guys, so we have our Pocket here. We're going to throw in some different types of games, make sure they load up okay, and if they do, which I have no reason to think they wouldn't, but if everything works okay, we're going to put this on the dock, and then we're going to do a game capture so that you guys can see it just as we see it with these different games that we try to get to work right now. So to start off, let's just go with a original Game Boy game. All right, to start off, we're going to do Dr. Mario for the Game Boy, and we'll just slide it down into the back, and then we'll turn our Analogue Pocket on. There we go. Play cartridge. All right, everything boots up just like it should. All right. So everything's working as it should, no problem. All right. So now we're going to turn it off and we're going to try a different type of cartridge. Now we're going to try Rush 2049 for the Game Boy Color. We'll just insert it into the back, turn it on. All right. Play cartridge. All right, looks very good. I will say that. The screen looks very clear. Let's just do a race real quick. All right. Oh boy, we're really rushing here. Anyway, everything looks good. Sounds pretty good. Controls seem to be working good. Yeah, I'm all over the place, but I'm doing this on purpose just to make sure that everything moves around like it should. But yeah, everything looks and sounds good. All right, now let's shut this off and we'll try our next game. All right, now we got Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2 for the Game Boy Advance. Just gotta put it in the back, start it up. Play cartridge. All right, man, it looks great. Sounds good, okay. All right, so this seems to be working okay. What we will do is we're gonna turn this off and we'll try our next game. All right, so next up is Sonic Chaos for the Game Gear. To play the Game Gear games, we're going to use our adapter that we got. So we'll just plug the adapter into the back. Fits pretty snug. And then we'll put our game into the top. Make sure it goes in all the way. And this is what it looks like. I'm not real crazy about it, how it sticks up out of the top real high, but whatever. So let's turn it on. Let's see what we got here. Play cartridge. All right, here we go. It looks really good. Sounds good. All right. So this is working fine, no problems. Buttons are very responsive. Everything seems to be working just as it should. All right, so this is good. Now we're going to try out the last thing that we've got here. Now we're going to try out the Everdrive GBA Mini from Krikzz. This is a cartridge where you can install games onto an SD card. So we're going to see if it works on the Pocket. Now it's shaped just like a Game Boy Advance game. So all we're going to do is just slide it down to the back like so. And we're going to turn it on. Now, if you're not familiar with this particular cartridge from Krikzz, it's got the ability to play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and NES games, and I believe Game Gear as well. So I've got some different games installed on here. We're just going to see if this works. Okay, so I've got different folders for the different types of games. I've got Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, NES. So we can go through any of them. We'll just go to Game Boy real quick. Okay, we got Tetris. And it's working. All right. So this is a way to play a number of different games if you would like to on this handheld console here. And the great thing about this, the reason why I wanted it, is because we can put it on the dock and play it on the TV, which is what we're going to do just here in a second for you guys, so you can experience the exact same thing that we're looking at on your screen. Okay, so this is working fine, no problems. So we're going to turn this off, and we're going to hook this up to our dock and then do game capture so that you guys can experience it firsthand, just like us. All right, you guys, so here we are at the main menu of the Analogue. Now, it's not really much to look at, honestly. You've got the letters right in the center of the screen, which seems a little off. It seems like it would be off to the left, maybe. But I don't know, I didn't design this. Somebody thought this was a good way to do it. I think it's a step down from what they did with their other consoles. We've got the Super NT and the Mega SG, and I think whenever you go into that, they've got the Analogue logo loading up, and then you go into the menu, and I think it looks better than this. The user interface is better. Since they've already had that developed, I don't know why they couldn't do that for the Pocket. And especially if you hook it up to the dock and you're looking at it on a TV, which is really what we wanted to do with this thing, it looks very underwhelming, I guess is the best way to say it. So I think they could have did a better job on that. It still works and everything's fine, but I think they could have did something to just give it some identity, give it some character, and this isn't it. But anyhow, if we go to controllers, we see here the SwitchPad Pro. That's what we're using. We've connected this using the button on the back of the dock. You hold it down for a second, it'll change the color on the front of the dock. On the front of the dock, there's 4 little dots, and those represent 4 different controllers that you can have, as you can see on the screen right now. Whenever you pair a controller, like the Switch Pro pad that we have here, the light will turn a different color on the front, and then the more controllers you add, the more of those 4 lights will light up until you have all 4, if you're going to connect 4 controllers. But that's how that works. So we'll go back. Tools, Nanoloop. So Nanoloop 2 is a digital audio workstation for GBA, for music creation and live performance. If you're looking to make music, then you can use this to do that, to create some video game style music or different things. GB Studio, a quick and easy to use drag and drop game creator for your favorite handheld video game system. So if you're looking to make your own games and be able to play it on here, you can do that, and this will help you to do that. Settings, so system, this is a different system, so we got Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, or Game Gear. If you go into the individual one, then you, for instance, that was Game Boy, we go to video, and you can change the way things look. I'm not going to change anything. We can look at this here, we see scale. Now the thing is, right now we're taking up the whole screen, not the left and right hand side, because if we take into consideration these screens are always square, and that's what we're looking at. If I try to change the width, it's going to distort this significantly, so we're just going to leave it with this square screen that we have here. But if you do change some things around, can always go to reset to defaults and it'll change that. So no big deal there. Sharpness, frame blending, color palettes. There's a lot of different things if you want to do a grayscale, mint, blue, green, purple, etc., etc. If you're familiar with the original Game Boy, it had the greenish yellow look to it. So this is just a way to change that if you want to make it look a little different. We're gonna leave all that alone. And then display mode, analog Game Boy, original GBP, original light, pinball, neon, matrix. So these are ways to change things. Once we're in the actual game, then we'll go through and we'll change this a little bit just to see what it looks like. If we go back, so this is just the same setup, but for the different consoles. It's Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Game Gear. So you can go in and you can change each one of those. Since the other consoles already had color, I'm not really concerned about changing those, but I am curious to see what it's going to look like on the Game Boy. The Pocket, if you want to do a global reset, you can right there. We're not going to mess with that. The dock itself, that's where we can go into the controllers. Or if we want to change the video resolution, we're going to leave this at 1080p. I just want to see how good it's going to look at 1080p on here. Now, and we're running at 60 Hertz. We're in North America, so we're going to leave that alone. Analog OS, this is operating system. We don't need to mess with that right now. And about, this is where you can just get legal information about the operating system, the company, etc. All right, so let's play this game. We've got Dr. Mario for the original Game Boy in here. And once we start it up and get going, I'll see if we can't get into this menu and play around with the settings a little bit. All right, so here we are. This is the home screen for the Dr. Mario. Now, before we actually get into the game, let's play around and see how we can make this thing look. So if we click the home button on our Switch Pro controller, we can get into our main menu. And what I want to see is we're going to go to Settings, Systems, Game Boy, Video, Display Mode, and I'm curious to see what these will do. So we got Analog GB. Okay, so that's going to change it to a black and white color palette. DMG, it gets us back to the original. This is more of a black and white look again. The original light, pinball, neon, matrix. Wow. So this is similar to the and then we have the pinball neon matrix, which is red here. Okay, so we're going to go back up to the standard look, if you will. Now the difference is, if you notice, if we go to the standard, how we can see all the little grid pixels that was similar to the original Game Boy, and if we click the analog Game Boy, everything is a higher resolution. Yeah, you've got larger lines and everything, but it does look a little different. If we get out of that, we can take a look and see what it actually looks like here. Here we go. So here's what it looks like if we're using this format. Now let's go back into the menu. Settings, Systems, Game Boy, Video, Display Mode. Go back to the original. And we can also go to Color Palette. We can change this. So right now it's on grayscale. We can change it mint. Oh no. This is for the, if we change the display mode to the analog version, then we can change the color palettes. Frame blending is on. Not sure what. Okay, so I think what we've got here, I'll take a step back. If we go to display mode and we change this to the analog GB, then we can go through some of these other options. So like color palette, we can change this to mint, blue, green, purple. Well, I think the green actually looks really good because then you can see Mario and everything else is different colors. The blue, the purple, well, the blue doesn't look too bad. But I think the green looks the best for this one. So let's go back, and then if we go to frame blending, let's see. So I don't really see anything different on the frame blending. I'm not sure what that's doing, but it was highlighted, so we'll just leave it alone. Sharpness, let's see what we can do here. Okay, that just makes it really blurry. I don't think that looks good. So we're just going to go back up to 3 like we had it. Size and position. So this is where we could, right now it's at 1200. If we want to make it fit the full screen, we can drag this out. And then we're going to have to change our X position to make it fit the screen. What we'll do is we'll just see what it looks like if we fill up the whole screen, and then we can just reset it so that it looks like it's supposed to. But for right now, let's see if we can't widen this up and fill up the screen. Just curious to see how distorted this thing's going to look if we do this. Okay. Okay, so if there's anyone that's interested in actually filling up your whole screen, you can definitely do that right here. This is what it would look like if we're using the green color palette on this game for the Dr. Mario. Now, in all honesty, it doesn't look bad. I mean, you are getting that full screen appearance. If you're doing game capture, maybe this would be good because it's going to take up the whole screen. But if you want to go back to that square look, it's like the original where nothing's distorted, then what we can do is we're going to go back into the menu, settings, video. Okay, so what we're going to do is just go to size and position and then reset to default. Boom. There we are, back to the way it was. Now, I actually like the way this looks, the way it is, better than the original. So I think I'm just going to leave this as it is. And we'll play this game for a minute, see how everything goes before we jump in and try to play another game. Now scale, I am kind of curious to see what this does. Okay. All right, so if we hit scale, it's going to make it a little bit smaller. Reset to default, it's going to just fill it back up. Okay, so here's the way it would look. Now we're going to go back and let's get into the actual game, try it out. Okay. All right, let's do this. Everything looks great. It's working just like it should, or at least like I think it should. All right, so you guys get the gist here. I mean, everything's working like it should. I don't see any issues. It looks really good like this. This is the best I've ever seen a Game Boy game look. And obviously this thing is changing the way everything looks, and it's meant to do that. But I think it looks great. Now we can go back. If we want to go back to that original look, then we could easily do that just going down to settings, systems, Game Boy, video, and then we could change the display mode to the original DMG. Now, honestly, I think it looks better right now, and that's the way I'm going to leave it. But the important thing to note here is that you've got the ability to make this thing look however you want it to look. So I think that's a good feature, but I like it like this. So this is where we're going to leave it. Now, we see this game. Everything works like it should on here, you guys. It looks great. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go back to the original screen. Let me see. We're going to quit game, confirm, and that's going to take us back to our main menu. So once we're here, now we can take the game out. We don't have to power off the dock or anything. We can take the game out and put our next game in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pull out Dr. Mario, and we are going to insert our Game Boy Color game, Rush 2049. Let's see what it does here. Okay, so we see how everything looks. Now what we're going to do, let's get into our menu just like we did on the Game Boy and see what this thing can do. So Game Boy Color, yeah, video. All right, so we've got frame blending, sharpness, desaturation. Let's just play with it a little bit. Frame blending. Okay, I don't notice a big difference. Let's see, analog Game Boy Color, original Game Boy Color. Okay, so here's what the original Game Boy Color would look like. If we wanted to make it look a little nicer, I think we should, then we can go with this version, which is the analog version. Definitely looks better. The frame blending was highlighted. I don't really see a difference. I don't know how it changes, but sharpness, again, this is just going to make it more blurry, and I think we should take the sharpness all the way up. I think it looks better. Desaturation, let's see what happens when we increase this. Okay, so this changes it to more of a black and white or a grayscale look. We don't need to do that. Just leave it down like it was. Size and position, again, same thing. If you want to stretch this thing out, take up your whole screen, you can do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it like it is because it looks better. If the screen was a little bit wider, and then it wouldn't be too bad, but since we've got such large areas on the side, whenever we try to stretch it out, it does change the image a good bit. So we're just going to leave it alone. Audio, cartridge volume, yeah, we don't need to change that. Controls, Super Game Boy. Okay, so it's pretty simple. So what we're going to do then, we'll just jump in and play this thing for a minute and see what we got. So full race, let's do this. I don't know one track from the other. Looks like we only got the first track anyways. Okay, third place unlocks second track. Here we go. All right. So we're moving. Controls are working pretty good here. Oh boy. A little bit of a speed boost there. Oh man. So it looks pretty good. Everything is controlling very good with our Nintendo controller. Now what I will say is I think it works better with the joystick. So as you know, the Pro controller has the D-pad and a joystick, like most of the modern controllers do. And I think this particular game anyways controls better using the joystick than it does with the directional pad, the D-pad. But hey, this looks great, and it sounds like it should, it controls like it should, so I think they've got a home run here. This thing does exactly what it should do. So that's the way this thing looks and performs. So now what we're going to do is let's go back to the main. We're going to quit this game, confirm, and then we're going to remove this cartridge, and we are going to insert Super Mario World 2, or Super Mario World Super Mario Advance 2 for the Game Boy Advance. I'm going to insert that in, start this thing up, see what we got. Now this looks really good. And if you remember what I was saying earlier about the sides of the screen, so we're really close to the full size of the screen here. We've just got small little black bars on the edges. So I think this is a game where, or a console, the Advance, because the original screen was rectangular, where you could go ahead and widen this up to the full screen and it wouldn't look too much different because we're not really changing it. The other ones were, there's so much of a distance between the edges that it's going to distort it. But this wouldn't be too much because of that. Now, we see the game here. Before we do anything, let's go back into our menu like we did before and see what options we've got. So, Systems, Game Boy Advance, Video, Display Mode. So let's go in Display Mode. So it's already on the Analog GBA. If we go to the original, see what it looks like. Okay, here we go. So here's the original. It's not that it's bad, but it definitely doesn't look as clear and crisp as the analog. Really just depends on what you like. I prefer, myself, the analog version because you don't have all the lines. It's easier on the eyes, at least I think so. And man, I just think it looks very good. So we're going to leave it on the Analog GBA. We've got frame blending, which is not selected. I don't know what, again, that changes, but we're just going to leave it like it was. We're going to leave sharpness all the way up. We'll leave the desaturation down. And let's try size and position for this one now, because it is almost at full size. So we'll change the width. All right, there we go. So that's the full size screen for this. And we're going to try it like this. Since we've done the others in the original format, we'll try this one as is, as we've set it up here. And play this game. Okay, resume game. Single player. There we go. All right. File A, let's go. All right, so I'm sure anybody watching this channel has played Super Mario World at some point in time. But this thing looks good. It's surprising to me how good they actually make it look on here. I just fell off like a dummy, but anyhow, everything looks good. The controls are working pretty good. Now, one thing I will note is the run is with B, and because of the positioning of the Pro controller, it's not real easy to do the A and the B to run and then jump. It would be better if run was Y and jump was B, but I don't know. There may be a way that you can change those controls around. Not real sure. It's kind of awkward to hold it. That's how I died a second ago. But anyways, yeah, I think everything looks and sounds and controls the way it should. So this is, I think this is a job well done by Analogue. And we did stretch this out a little bit to fit the full screen. But since it wasn't much of a difference to begin with, it doesn't look bad, at least in my opinion. Now, maybe you guys like that original look, and that's fine, and I may end up changing it back to the original too. The key is here, though, you've got the option to do whatever the hell you want to do with it. Whether you want to leave it alone or change it, whatever you want to do, it's there. All right, so that's how this looks. Now, let's get back to our main menu. We're going to quit the game. Yep. And we're going to throw in, we're going to use our Sonic Chaos cartridge with our Sega Game Gear adapter for this thing. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so here we are. Now let's go to our settings again. Systems, Game Gear, Video. Now this is already set on the Analog Game Gear. Let's see what the original looked like. Okay, so you've got all those scan lines. If that's something you like and gives you that nostalgic feel or whatever, then cool. The Game Gear Plus, that looks a little better. The colors are a little bit more vibrant. But honestly, I'm not too crazy about the scan lines. I would prefer just to have the Analog Game Gear look, and that's what I'm going to choose. But you can do it however you want to do it. So we'll do that. The frame blending, we're going to leave alone. Sharpness, desaturation, size, and position. So this is another one that's set up more square. We could distort it and stretch it out if we wanted to, but I want to leave it as is for right now. So we're just going to go back and let's play this game and see what it does here. All right. Turquoise Hill Zone. All right. All right, so we got tails here. Now, one thing I like better automatically is our jump is the B button on the Pro controller, which is the bottom. It feels so much better. All right. Everything seems to be working pretty good. Everything looks really good, at least in my opinion it does. The controls are spot on. Sounds very good. Just what you would expect out of this. So no issues. Yeah. So this is another win, I think, for Analog. This looks, sounds, controls very good. Just very impressed with how it actually looks too. I mean, yeah, you can go back to that original palette if that's what you like, the way it looks. You know, no issue there. Just depends on what you like, but I think they this version that they have here that makes the colors much more vibrant and everything stands out, I like it better. Maybe it's just me, but I do appreciate the quality of that. There we go. All right, so there's the first level down. I think they did a really good job on this. Every console we've tried out on here looks good, sounds good. You've got a lot of options if you want to change around the way things look, the size of the screen, the color palette, however you're wanting to do it. They've got the options on here to customize it and make it exactly how you want it, which is the key. Plus, you can do what we're doing right now. You can do game capture out of this thing because of that HDMI out on the dock and play it on your TV. I'm not too crazy about doing handheld games anymore. It's just hard. It's hard for my eyes to keep up with them. So this is better for me. I can put the game on the TV and play it, and you know, maybe that's not for everybody, but I think it's a good option to have. You can just have the Pocket as you want it, or if you want to get the dock, then you can do this. All right, so we're going to go back to the main menu here. Quick game. And then we're going to try out one more thing. We are going to try out our Krikzz Everdrive GBA Mini. Now this cartridge allows you to put game files on an SD card or micro SD card, insert it into this cartridge, and then play it. Now we've already tested it in our hand. We know it's going to work, but now let's see what it looks like on the actual screen here and go from there. Because man, I think this is kind of the ultimate system to have this Analogue Pocket with this Everdrive so that you can play all these different games on it. If you're not familiar with this, the way this particular Everdrive cartridge works, it can play the Game Boy Color, NES, and the Game Boy games on it via an emulator that you install onto the cartridge itself. You could also do Game Gear, I believe. I didn't do that, but you can do that. Now they also have Everdrive cartridges for those individual systems if you want to do that. But this is neat because it's got the option where you can play the games via an emulator that's installed on the cartridge so that you can still play the games without needing to purchase that other Everdrive cartridge if that's what you're wanting to do. But just take note that it is an option if you want to do that. So what we've got here is I've just got a couple files set up that's easy to go through. GB, Game Boy, we got Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and the NES. So we're just going to go through a couple of these games, see what they look like from the Krikzz so that I can give you a first-hand experience of what you can expect. And we're going to try the Tetris game. Everybody knows Tetris, familiar with it, so let's just see what it looks like on here. All right, so controls feel pretty good. Yep, everything seems to be working all right. I don't see an issue with it. Everything, it sounds like it's as it should, in my opinion at least, and the graphics and everything look very good. So it is using that upgraded graphics from the Analogue. The only difference is it's not changing the color of this. But as far as the graphics go, so let me pause this and I'll explain. So on the last game, I was thinking that it didn't change it, but it did. Because if we see the way it looks and all that, you can see all the lines that are real clear and everything. It's not like that on the original Game Boy. It's got that other look to it. So the look here is matching up to the Game Boy and what it should look like, as far as their display mode being the analog. So this is Analogue's Game Boy look. It just doesn't have those other colors because this is on that Krikzz cartridge instead of having the original cartridge itself. But other than that, having that being said, it does look good. It looks better than the original in my opinion because everything, I just like the real crisp lines on everything. But let's get back to the game here. So, yeah, this is playing and looking just great. I don't see any issue with it. It looks better than than what I can remember it as a kid playing this thing. So I think they did a good job on this. And you know, as far as Krikzz goes with these cartridges, this seems to be working and playing just like it should. So this is a success in my opinion. So now what we'll do is we'll look at, let's pause this, we're going to get out of this and we'll try a different game out. Okay, go back into the cartridge. Game Boy Advance, see what games we got on here. Okay, F-Zero, Gradius. So we will try out Gradius Advance, start game. All right. Now, if you remember, we had stretched the screen out to the full size, and it looks like it's still there, but I do notice that it needs to be moved to the left a little bit. So let's try that. Let's go to Systems, Game Boy Advance, yeah. Video, size and positions. Let's go to, yeah, there we go. Needs to be moved over just a little bit. Okay, so that's all the way over. And then we change our width just a little bit here. That's it. All right, so we've got we've taken up the whole screen now with this. And let's play it and see what it does. Looks very good, I think anyway. Start. Okay, type. Whatever, we don't care. Let's just play the game. Start. All right, start. Oh yeah, so this thing looks very good, at least I think so. I'm not gonna get the power up, shoot. Okay. Okay, we can move a little faster. All right, so yeah, this thing, it looks good. The control is very good with this controller. You can use the D-pad or the joystick, whatever you like. I think on this it's actually a little easier with the D-pad. The joystick just kind of gets you all over the place. But anyhow, that's how this works. I think it looks good. So now let's get out of here. And let's get back to the menu here for the Krikzz. Let's try out Game Boy Color. Krikzz Adventure. Now I like these games a lot. If you guys haven't played these, they make them for a couple different consoles. It's pretty cool. Basically, you've got a picture and you've got to get a spaceship to draw a straight line around this enemy until you take up a certain percentage of the map. I think it's 75% or greater, something like that. And when you do that, you beat the level and go to the next one. It's a fun game though. So let's go to the original to show you how it works. Claim more than 75%, yeah. Okay. Okay, so what we're wanting to do here is we're wanting to take up as much of the screen as we possibly can and basically trap that object in here without getting hit. Well, it just caught me. But anyhow, this is how it works. It's a fun game once you play it a little bit. Good puzzle game. But I think the key is here, man, everything looks really good. If you can see how clear all the colors are and the sound, it sounds very clear. The resolution's good. So I think this is another success. And we've got the Krikzz working as good as it can on this thing. Again, good combination here. So Game Boy Color works good, Game Boy Advance, and the Game Boy. Now, let's go back to the main menu. So we're gonna quit this game. And we're gonna try out one more thing here. We're gonna try out the NES games that I've put on here just to see what it's gonna sound like and look like. So everybody knows Contra. let's check out Contra. All right, here we go. All right, well, I just died. So what I will say on this, I mean, this is an emulated game on here. So it's not the, it's not original hardware, and you can definitely tell it's a little pixelated looking with the way the pixel, well, not pixelated looking, but the way it's shimmering around the graphics. I mean, it looks pretty good. I won't take anything away from it. It looks pretty good, but since it's being emulated, there is a difference, and you can definitely tell it. Outside of that, though, I mean, it's playing as good as it should. Everything's moving just like it should be moving. The sound isn't all that great, but I don't know if that's just this particular game file or not. We'll try the other NES game that we put on here just to see what happens. Go. And it's like 1,000 of these guys, huh? All right. Almost got my head blown off there. Okay, anyways, this is Contra, so it's playing as good as it should. There's no issues there. The controls and everything's fine. It's just there is like a little bit of a shimmer to the pixels on here, but I don't know if that's for sure the file or the cartridge, but it is working pretty good. And I think just the ability to be able to play those NES games on here is a neat option. Now, again, it's not the handheld games, it's not the Game Boy or the Advance or any of that, which is why, but it's an option, and I think that's cool that you can do that. So let's go back to the cartridge again, and we're going to try that other NES game that we put on here just to see if it looks or sounds any better before we proceed. Clash at Demon Head. If you've never played this game, this is a pretty fun game to play. It's neat how you progress through it. Okay, yeah, so the same thing. So my guess is it's one of the two. It's either the file itself, which I don't think it is at this point. I think it's the emulator portraying it this way through the cartridge, but it is still very playable. It looks pretty good. There's just a little bit of shimmer. Actually, I think this one might look a little bit better than the Contra on here, but yeah, I think this is a neat option to be able to play this if maybe you don't have an NES, or you don't have access to some of the NES games that you really like, or want to try some of them out. It's cool that you can do that on here and be able to play it through this analog dock. So that's pretty cool. All right, so let's just go back to the menu for a second here. So overall, what do we think here, you guys? I think Analogue did a very good job. I'm very happy with everything we've purchased from them. Everything's working good on this, whether it be the original cartridge or the Krikzz cartridge. Everything works as it should. I have already ordered the other adapters as well for the TurboGrafx cartridge, the Atari Lynx, and the Neo Geo Pocket. I don't have those yet. I believe they're supposed to be shipped out first quarter of 2024. When we get them, we'll definitely test them out and show you what we think about them. For now, though, Game Gear works, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color all work flawlessly. Those files also work great using the Krikzz cartridge. Zero problems whatsoever. The only thing that I would knock on this whole thing, the whole setup, I just think that the user interface could be improved upon a little bit. It's easy to use for sure, but the whole experience of turning it on and going into here, I think they could have made it look a little bit better and really give it some identity for itself. This is kind of a cheap setup, and when I say cheap, I don't mean like it's not a cheap game at all, but it just looks cheap. This user interface here, this menu. They could have did something to make this look a little bit better. But as far as the way it works great. You've got plenty of options to change the way things look, sound, etc. So I think they've nailed it. They did a great job. If I were going to say, you know, 1 to 5 stars, I would say this is a 5-star. Yeah, I'm nitpicking the user interface a little bit. It's really not that important. The important thing is everything works and sounds just like it should. The ability to play it on a TV is great. The ability to do game capture, to do whatever you want to do with this thing is awesome. So I think they did a good job. They've got a really good product here, and I'm glad that we were finally able to get our hands on it. All right, you guys, so you've seen us unbox and test out the Analogue Pocket. Now this is a great system. It's made very well. Just like the other 2 consoles that we've purchased from them, everything works just as it should. You know, my only complaint really up until now for Analogue and any of their products is just the way that they go to market. I tried to purchase one of these things directly from them. It was a disaster. They've had these limited editions come out multiple times, and every time I try to get on there, no matter if I'm right on the time or not, it just doesn't work out. I'll get stuck in some kind of a queue and then I miss out. I know there's a lot of people on YouTube with the same complaints, and I really wish that Analogue would pay attention to these complaints and do a little better job. Their products are great, just make it a little bit more accessible to everyone. Overall though, I can't complain. This is a very good system, and I recommend it if you're wanting to be able to not only play a handheld portable console, but as well to be able to play it on a television, which is really what we wanted to be able to do. Not only to play some of these on the go, but we can also do a game capture from them going to our TV, which works out great. So thanks for tuning in to the episode. We really appreciate it. And until next time, keep gaming.